Now, one of ALEC's primary goals as well is to privatize the public education system in this country. We have seen a number of bills that have been pushed here in Arizona to do specifically that. The next speaker is Erin Kirchoff, and she is with the Kyrene School District and with the Arizona Education Association.
Kirchoff, Kirchoff, like Frank. Thank you. Good morning. Like John said, my name is Erin Kirchoff, and I'm a middle school teacher in the Kyrene School District located in the East Valley. I'm here today to share my story with taxpayers in public school neighborhoods across the state about how legislators who meet here at the Capitol make laws that impact our students. I'd like to tell you about a colleague of mine, Reuben Johnson. Reuben is one of the most outstanding music teachers I have ever met. He has this amazing ability to get 30 kindergartners to listen to him and yet have 8th graders call him cool, which is a pretty impressive feat. Yet, despite Reuben's awesome teaching ability and passion for his subject, he was riffed or laid off last year. Reuben lost his job because of bad legislation passed here in these buildings. And the students at Reuben's school are paying the price. Teachers in my district, parents across the state, and community members like yourselves have been operating under a misperception. It's a misperception that many Arizonans share. We believe that legislators we elect represent us above all else when they are making decisions that impact the quality of our neighborhood schools. And unfortunately, that's not necessarily true. Instead, a majority of the legislators here at the Capitol are supporting ideas generated by corporate lobbyists in Washington, D.C. and all across the country. Through ALEC, legislators are sitting side by side with lobbyists and groups to draft education legislation that serves the interests of those who want to privatize our education system. No teacher input, no student input, corporate input. Drafting education policies that turn our public schools into a profit-making endeavor. While ALEC has been around for decades, we didn't know until recently how it operates, and because of its secret backdoor history, it's difficult to measure the impact ALEC has had on legislators who over a decade ago passed Arizona's tuition tax credit and charter school laws. These same laws resulted in profitable business ventures for these several legislators. Thanks to the work of the People for the American Way and the Common Cause and a side-by-side report they created, I can now educate parents and teachers in my neighborhood about how our legislators write education laws that directly impact my students, our students, such as legislation that can be directly linked to ALEC model language for virtual schools, where students need not be physically present during instruction, eliminating teachers and the connection they build with students. I have a lot of those students who need those connections. I have a 7th grade boy named Rudy. Rudy's having a really hard time right now. He's living with his aunt and his uncle. He just lost his mother. And he's also going through typical 7th grade struggles. We all remember those: bullying, first loves, academic struggles. Rudy comes to see me every single morning to talk about these issues. And we work through them, and sometimes he cries, and sometimes he vents, and sometimes he just needs to sit. In a virtual classroom like ALEC supports, where would Rudy go? I don't know where all of our Rudys would go. Another side-by-side comparison shows how ALEC was able to get legislation introduced that funnels our public tax dollars to private schools through scholarships or the parental grants that would pay parents our tax dollars for sending their students to private school. The parents and the taxpayers in my neighborhood have not been clamoring for these changes. Instead, they have been asking for adequately funded neighborhood schools that provide full-day kindergarten, smaller class sizes, and training that support teachers. In fact, a report released just this morning from the Morrison Institute stated that 91% of Arizonans say that K-12 education is their most important priority. In 2009 and 2010, Arizona legislators cut or withheld over $500 million from Arizona's already underfunded school system. Full-day kindergarten eliminated. Teachers and staff were reduced as class sizes rose. And yet at the same time, legislators introduced legislation to expand tuition tax credits and pass voucher bills. Even after voters taxed themselves in 2010, passing Proposition 100, legislators made hundreds of millions of dollars in school cuts. We all know why that our legislator seems to be out of touch with voters, and now we can begin to see why. There could be light at the end of the tunnel, however. Elections can still belong to Arizona voters if we are willing to hold our legislators accountable to our priorities and expose legislators who are representing the narrow interests of corporations through ALEC. And in fact, we already have begun. The Senate president has been recalled. Former Senator Russell Pierce, exposing his connections to national agendas, defended his position on education by sending out a series of flyers promoting his voting record on education that privatize education. This fall, instead, voters chose to elect his challenger, who pledged to work more closely with the local school board and community leaders on education issues. I am hopeful that we can return our legislators' allegiance to the Arizona voters through broad coalitions like the one here today. I am confident that once educated, our voters will be able to choose legislators who represent their neighborhood interests over ALEC's corporate lobbyist interests. And we need to make sure that they do, for Rudy, for my students, and for all of our students. Thank you.